Hello everyone, we are Group Kemerdekaan. We are going to discuss about a very good book. This is Secret of the Money Lab. This book written by Kayun Chet and Marina Krakowski. This is the book that shows how behavioral economics can improve your business. Enjoy the book. Marina took a game. Each participant plays roles as buyer and seller. The interaction happens through the computer. Buyers order goods from the sellers and pay for them. Sellers receive payment and choose how much for the shipment. At the end of the game, buyers and sellers would see who fulfilled which orders. Given this information, buyers would choose whom to do business within the next period. Sellers would decide how to proceed themselves. At the end of the game, money earned during the experiments would convert to US dollars. Buyers and sellers continue their game. When the game is over, cash were counted. This game is created by Kayun Chet. Secret of the Money Lab. The book draws on several decades of experimental research in business, psychology, and also economics. Chan started behavior economics research at Hewlett-Packard. His groundbreaking research into human behavior has led to tangible results for HP. In fact, he has saved the company millions of dollars by showing how changing the right condition can make people behave very differently. Secret of the Money Lab offers practical lessons being put to use right now at HP and other leading companies. When the Swedish Nobel Committee awarded the 2002 Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Science to Vernon L. Smith, an economist at George Mason University, it simply affirmed that economics have long known that experimental economics has arrived as a respected and powerful discipline within economics. The committee noted that the award was based on Smith's having established laboratory experiment as tool in empirical economic analysis, especially in study of alternative market mechanism. Economic experiments are not simulation or role-playing exercise. They involve real people who make serious choices. Through their effort, participants stand for make or lose substantial amount of money. Experimental economics not only has allowed us to see how common and control regulation in the market affect behavioral and produce unintended consequences, but also has helped address how public good might be provided using market principle. Yahoo and Google use HouseLab for fine-tuning keyword auction rules and other advertising programs. eBay, Ford, and Hitachi also have unleashed experimental economics on a consulting basis. Even government may use lab experiments to improve policy decisions in the
Hello, my name is Kusuma W.W, and I would like to tell you about the Secret Money Lab. As part of this chapter, I would like to say about reputation and reality. Wikipedia definition talk about the reputation of a social entity, a person, a social group, an organization is an opinion about that entity, typically a result of social evaluation on a set of criteria. It is important in business, education, online communities, and many other fields. But in this book about Secret of Money Lab, reputation says something about real things in the world, but in themselves, reputation are not reality. In short, reputation is just a proxy for the real thing. The link between reputation and reality isn't as solid as you may think. There's two things related about this reputation. Please don't about five-star reputation. It's just in a picture. These two of the relation of reputation, the transparency effect and improving the system. The transparency effect, a clear example of how reputational information affect economic behavior by both buyers and sellers. In the context of models with asymmetric information, it will show you an analogous dichotomy instead of adverse selection and moral hazard. Under adverse selection, one player does not know the other player's type. Under moral hazard, is the other player's action that unobserved. Second is about improving the system. It is important, it's better than nothing to have. Having a reputation system is better for both buyers and sellers than not having one. It's also great for the marketplace where these buyers and sellers meet. It's make more easier people to know why you are so reputed or so famous. Simple way is the next slide about reputation downside. This is one thing of because why reputation should be careful and understand about the risk. Because reputation is what are they saying about you, and they're saying about you, it can be on social media, by texting, by twittering, Facebook, etc. So you have to protect your brand reputation, so you have to keep in mind there are several potential pitfalls. The greater the reputation, the more vulnerable it is to market fluctuation. Highly reputable people and companies are more vulnerable to crisis in general because they have more to lose. Because those with big reputations have more to lose, it's not in their best interest to take risks. That's reputation downside that should be careful and to keep in mind. Now, the second part is about trust and prosperity. Economists say trust is among the strongest predictors of nation wealth. Countries low in trust are poor because their citizens reluctant to make the source of investment that create jobs and raises incomes. But if trust lead to prosperity, that's not to say that blind trust does. So when people giving trust to us, so we have to keep it in our mind, because we should not have the negative thinking about person who will we trust, or bad thing that they can do if they have negative thinking, not positive thinking. So when we trust someone, just keep it and believe it. Succeed, great success that will make prosperity together. That's the relationship of trust and prosperity. These two kinds of force of incentive after we know about the trust and the prosperity. The force of incentive is about when to trust and when to act. The point is that two forces are at work in people's decisions about when to trust and when to act trustworthy, selfish, economic interests, and the desire to do the right thing. We are neither saints nor are we completely selfish. Small change in incentives and other change in the context can make the same persons behave in very different ways. You will more explain in this slide about trust in different culture. Every person have different culture, different education, and different background. So what happens when people around the world play in the trust? Let's say in the trust game. The answer is people's pattern of trust and trustworthiness change very little. What appears to be going on is that the trust game strips away culture, including social norms, social culture, legal institution, and reputation effect. What's left behind, we can assume, is human nature. Next, after we know the trust, we know the incentive and warranties. Before I repeat the incentive and warranties. From the picture, we know that it's very easy to support people doing their best. So, like the message of incentive as an example of cheap talk, will distrust the company claim because its action contradict its words. So, the picture shows the cheap talks. If we can do the best, so we have more incentive. Your efforts will pay more. Well, about the trust, about the prosperity, one thing you know is nothing lasts forever. Keep in mind that even after you've decided someone is worthy of your trust, a little vigilance might still be necessary. You saw that even with high level of trust, you will usually have to set up system of rules, including rewards and penalties, to keep incentive from skewing trust.
Next, we will explain about Secret of the Money Lab, Chapter 7, Playing to the Rules of the Game. Given enough incentive, we will look for loopholes, subverting the intent of a rule for personal gain if not for occult profit. Then, for the sheer fun of gaming the system. This happens wherever rules exist, whether they be written or tacit, text codes or company policies. Consider this example. Pay-for-performance system aim to reward quality. Health insurers sometimes track doctors by patient outcomes. And the No Child Left Behind Act rewards school for having students meet state standards. So to inflate their scores, schools push bad students to drop out while doctors turn away the sickest patients. Even small changes in the rules can create big opportunities for people to game the system. Following the rules but not creating the effects that the rule designers intended. In fact, sometimes the result of the game create effects that are the opposite of what the rules were intended to do. We focus on just one type of rule that's common in many businesses and no businesses situation, what we call timing rules, or rules having to do with when something happens. Any kind of deadline or due date is a timing rule, as are start times or requirements stipulating minimum or maximum times for eligibility in a program. the nick of time. You have heard of this time and time again after days, weeks, or even months of negotiations. Unions and management narrowly avert a strike by reaching an agreement just before deadline. Such 11-hour agreements happen in other types of negotiations as well. If a deadline has no consequences, it often comes and goes with no agreement reached. When the deadline had teeth, when the negotiators know that not reaching agreement before the deadline will lead to a strike or a legal trial, or the permanent loss of a deal, negotiations tend to drag on but suddenly end just before the deadline. Economists Allroth, Kate Mornigan, and Francois Schumacher analyzed several laboratory experiments that mimic actual negotiations. Some players reach agreements just 1 or 2 minutes into decision. However, many agreements weren't reached until quite literally the last minute. More than 30% of the agreements were reached in the last 30 seconds of each session. Whether the negotiations was not to last at most 9 minutes or 12 minutes, and whether the fair split was obvious or more complicated. A good number of negotiating pairs reach agreement just before the deadline. But some rules, including deadlines, have unintended consequences, even when rule makers do have power to implement them. When you design a business process that seems to call for a deadline, be careful, because the deadline is sure to affect people's behavior and not always in ways that you want. When time is everything. Here's another timing rule with economic consequences. If you are a regular bidder on eBay, you've probably noticed that many of the bids come too close to the end of an auction. Such bid snipping doesn't even require sitting in front of your computer close to midnight or whenever the auction is set to end. Yet snipping, whether manual or automated, is an inevitable part of internet auctions. How does the extension rule reduce snipping? No one has explored these questions more than Allroth, Danieli, and Axel Okenfields. The researchers created a simplified version of eBay and Amazon in their lab. These experiments replicated the real-world bidding phenomena beautifully. They found that participants bid more in the last round under the eBay-style ending rule than under the Amazon ending rule. Under eBay ending rule, as participants gained experience, they were more likely to bid in the last round, and completely the opposite happened on the Amazon-like side. As a result, the Amazon-style ending rule resulted in slightly higher revenue for the resellers, about 3% higher. Revenue-wise, the differences is slight, almost inconsequential, but in terms of profits, it can be huge. When you are selling products with 6% margins, a revenue boost of 3% raises your profit by 50%. Getting people to follow the MAP. When you are in the market for a specific item, whether it's a particular model of computer, shoe, or South pen, competition among retailers is great. It promises to give you the lowest possible price for whatever it is you want to buy. Manufacturers actually don't like price competition among their retailers. Price wars among retailers drive prices down to their cost. If retailers see the manufacturer's products as unprofitable for them to sell, retailers see that manufacturer's product as unprofitable for them to sell. They won't want to carry them. To prevent the fate, the manufacturer might like to set a minimum price for all retailers to use. But there's one hitch: overt price fixing. In this case, a vertical price fixing is against the law. The common workout in many industries is for a manufacturer to set a minimum advertised price, or MAP. To be able to buy products from the manufacturer, the retailer agrees not to advertise the manufacturer's product below a certain minimum price. To sweeten the deal, the manufacturer typically throws in some advertising dollars, which the retailer can use to promote that manufacturer's product. The incentive for cheating under MAP are high. Manufacturers therefore have to find ways to punish cheaters to make cheating so costly that retailers won't want to do it. Like so many other companies, HP has had penalties for MAP violations for years, but the penalties weren't working very well. Working with Gary Kernes, Katyut tested several penalty systems. Gary and Katyut solved the problem a different way, by imposing a two-sided penalty. The first part of the penalty was retroactive, punishing retailers based on the shipment quantity before the MAP violation. The second part of the penalty was future-looking. The new policy penalized MAP violators in proportion to their sales immediately after the violation. There's general lesson from these particular experiments. Timing issues are more important than you might expect. After all, the absolute size of the penalties didn't change, only the period in which the penalties applied. More generally, even seemingly small changes to the rules can have a big impact on people's behavior. In 2001, Katyut and his colleagues conducted a series of experiments to study incentives associated with market development funds, or money that manufacturers give retailers for joint promotion campaigns. In hindsight, the loophole looks obvious. How could experienced researchers have forgotten about 3% at the heart of the experiment and not foreseen the incentive for gaming that it would provide during one period in the game? In lieu of real experiment, you might try a thought experiment. Put yourself in the shoes of the people you are dealing with, whether they be your suppliers, your resellers, or your employees, and try finding ways to exploit the system you are setting up for them, whether it's a supplier agreement, an unemployment contract, or a sales compensation scheme. Next, we will explain about Chapter 8, Predicting the Unpredictable. The 81st Academy Awards ceremony held on February 22, 2009. The message boards on Oscar.com were buzzing, and much of the debate swirled around the Best Actress category. The leading contenders were Meryl Streep in Dope and Kate Winslet in The Reader. We can spend all day reading the chatter on message boards or listening to industry insiders, or we can take a quick look Hollywood Stock Exchange, SX.com, a trading market in which anyone can bet on Oscar outcomes, box office results, and the future values of individual actors and directors. It's a kind of Nasdaq for Tinseltown, with trading in Hollywood dollars. At one point, shares of Kate Winslet, The Reader, were trading at 15.79 Hollywood dollars, whereas you could buy Meryl Streep Dope for $5.78 per share. Nobody's know for certain that Kate Winslet will end up winning, but these prices serve as an indicator of her prospects. In fact, each share price could be read as the likelihood of each outcome. The fact is that everybody, including Hollywood outsiders, knows a little something. The problem? HSX tries to solve it to pull together those little bits of information into a single prediction. Now money changes hands on the Hollywood Stock Exchange. Users get several million Hollywood dollars for free when they sign up. And this money worthless outside the game. Nonetheless, HSX is for profit operation. HSX sells data to filmmakers, financiers, and others in the movie business. With millions of dollars going into a film, Hollywood decision makers need to know how to spend it. HSX is a prediction market, and the prediction markets are a solution to one of the most important problems in business: predicting the future, or what most business people call forecasting. Accurate forecasts would help them budget perfectly, decide how many staffers to hire or lay off, and how much inventory to order. Erring on the side of caution, on the other hand, isn't safe either. That leads not only to temporary back orders, but also to customers taking their business elsewhere. The standbys, guesstimation, and number crunching. Different prediction problems can call for different forecasting methods. Forecasting methods such as guesstimation, number crunching, collective intelligence, incentives, and risk attitudes are explained in the table. When prediction markets fail. Although the prediction market can be a powerful tool, it's prone to several pitfalls. First, the bloodless stone. In 2003, after the US forces took Baghdad, Saddam Hussein was on the run and he managed to avoid capture for several months. During that time, Intrade conducted a prediction market on whether Saddam Hussein would be captured. For a long time, the price of the bet that Saddam would be captured or neutralized by the end of December hovered around 9 cents over the dollar. In other words, the market deemed this outcome unlikely with only a 9% chance of happening. Saddam was actually captured by the end of December, on December 13, 2003, yet just 2 days earlier, the price had jumped from 9 cents to only 30 cents, meaning that the market was still predicting a strong chance, 70%, that Saddam would not be captured by the end of December 2003. What happened? The simple answer is that you cannot squeeze blood out of stone. If the players don't know anything, no method can get them to predict. Prediction markets don't have supernatural powers, and without crucial information, the market can be very wrong. The second lesson is that predictions can change very rapidly once new information becomes available and assimilated into the market, as they did 2 days before Hussein's capture. Second, poor liquidity. In general, prices in prediction markets capture all the information only if the markets are liquid. What makes a market liquid? Whenever a trader wants to buy or sell, or he or she can find a taker. This liquidity ensures that the information is captured in the share price. A high level of trading activity is the market is low. Traders cannot always execute the trades they want, and so the current price doesn't necessarily reflect private information of individuals. Traders' frustration at not being able to find buyers and sellers can reduce their activity in the market, making the problem snowball. So even if you have enough participants for the law of large numbers to work its magic, the number might be high enough to create liquidity in the market. And the last one is bubbles. In most organizations, information flows anything but freely. As information moves up, down, and across the organizational chart, it gets filtered and distorted, leading to high ratios of noise to data. In a prediction market, even traders who work in the same organization can share independent information without this game of telephone effects. Sometimes, market creates bubble. In these unfortunate situations, rather than using private information to correct against errors in the market prices, traders see prices going up and assume that other traders know more than they know themselves. So rather than selling, the new traders buy. This of course further inflates prices, which other traders see as more evidence that the stock is valuable. So they buy, further driving up the price and so on until the bubbles burst. Many economists believe that bubbles can arise whenever a disproportionate number of bullish participants enter the market. The brain method. HP's research on prediction markets had research a crossroads. On the one hand, asking people to bet money on their beliefs seemed like a good idea. On the other hand, in this particular business setting, the prediction market was plagued with problems. What was needed was a way to gather collective intelligence that didn't require many participants and took very little of their time. In 2000, Katyut and his colleagues at HP Lab designed a new method of aggregating information, an economic game that they affectionately dubbed Brain. Instead of players trading with each other the way they would in prediction market, players in the Brain game bet on outcomes directly with the house, much as roulette players do in casino. HP successfully use brain for a variety of predictions, including revenue forecasts and future precise of DRAM, an essential component of many HP products. Although brains work superbly with small groups, it has some drawbacks. The main pitfall with adding up bets is the risk of counting the same information more than once. To prevent double counting, brain relies on knowing how different bettors' information might be related. The resulting forecast is only as good as the system formulas. A prediction market, on the other hand, does the math automatically. It learns the collective intelligence of the group and agrees on a forecast through the natural evolution of prices alone. Therefore, with enough motivated participants, the market may be a better choice because you won't run the risk that the math will be wrong. The policy analysis market, a cautionary tale. After 9/11 attacks, it became clear that members of the US intelligence community were doing a poor job of sharing information. Organizational barriers made information sharing difficult, and staffers had no incentive to share information with rival agencies. A prediction market would seem the perfect solution to this problem, but the plan for the so-called policy analysis market PAM never got off the ground, and the story of this abysmal, high-profile failure offers an important lesson for anyone thinking of setting up prediction market. To prevent another 9/11, the Defense Advanced Research Project GANSI, or DARPA, a research arm of the Department of Defense, was eager to try new methods of predicting events in the Middle East, not only terrorist attacks, but any geopolitical or economic events of interest to US defense. To begin work on the market, they enlisted a company called Net Exchange, run by people with expertise in prediction markets. PAM might have remained an arcane research project in DARPA hadn't brought it before Congress by asking for more money. Two senators were particularly outraged by the PAM and called press conference to expose a project they deemed not only wasteful but also morally repugnant. In the spirit of controversy, the project was killed. The project's supporters said the prediction market ended only for political reasons. Nonetheless, the motive to manipulate the outcome through profit from the market is always a potential problem with insiders. Manipulation requires both power and incentives. A final lesson from the PAM debacle is to think about public perceptions. Even if you're planning an internal prediction market, people in the company may have misgivings about what you are doing. Try to anticipate people's objections and address them before they roll out. Along the same lines, set a reasonable expectation, teaching the users of the market what it can and cannot do. Self-fulfilling prophecies. The incentives approach to intentions. For information aggregation to work, whether through a prediction market, brain, or similar method, participants must have some information about future events but should have no power to affect the outcome. Take the more prosaic example of sales forecasting. Who would be most knowledgeable about the future sales? Naturally, it's the salesperson themselves. Any forecasting process should therefore include them. Suppose you give a salesperson big incentive to make an accurate sales forecast. That makes sense, but it's wrong. The salesperson understands that some deals are riskier than others. A prospect might become his biggest customers or might order nothing at all. Going after a customer like that could bring a major business but could also throw off the salesperson's forecast. So the salesperson decides not to pursue risk deals, even if they are the best interests of the company. The problem might appear even more complex with a retailer or distributor. These middle links in supply chain buy products from the manufacturer and resell them to their own customers. A company would love to know how much product a distributor will order in a given month. But that's hard for a distributor to predict because the distributor doesn't know how much her end customers will buy. The underlying demand is random and can fluctuate greatly. The word forecasting carries a lot of baggage. It evokes image of numbers, crunching of possible newer methods like prediction markets. But these methods don't work in all situations. So seeing the problem in terms of forecasting problem as another type of problem, you can let go of the baggage and see new avenues for solving the problem. The key insight, instead of asking how can we improve the accuracy of a forecast, they ask how can we get distributors to stick to the forecast they've made. The solution of the problem requires some sort of commitment device, a way to get people to keep their promises. Prepayment is a kind of commitment device, and if you can get your customer to place pre-orders, you can greatly improve the accuracy of your forecast, sometimes 100%. Katyut use another commitment device, a down payment. We know that a down payment on a house enforces your promise to pay off the loan, because if you fail to make your mortgage payments, you risk losing your down payment. The down payment is not enough, so put in a reward for meeting the commitment, a discount that kicks in once the distributor places the actual order. Furthermore, the system does not discourage the distributor from selling more. That's because she continues to make money off each additional unit of sales, even after she meets her commitment. The double-sided incentive, which come from seeing the forecasting problem as a commitment problem, was the key to the solution. But this insight was only the first type. There's no general answer to the optimal level of each type of incentive. Coming up with the best levels require trial and error, rigorous experiments safely confined to the lab. Some problems are too complex to resolve in a few glib sentences. A responsible advice giver needs to know much more about the person and her situation, and may well need some back and forth to find a solution. And now, here we go to the conclusion. Throughout this book, you've read about many of the forces that drive behavior. Some are straightforward. It's easy to apply the notion that, while everyone wants to fair deal, two people may have different ideas of what fair. Other forces work in considerably more complicated ways. For example, the different types of contracts lead to different kinds of stocking errors. But all these insights can be applied in one way or another. And as you go about putting them into action, you will do well to keep in mind this dictum. Learn the scientist, but be the engineer. If you want to optimize your profits to the last dollar, you may need to hire someone to perform the arcane work of behavioral modeling and mathematical analysis. The scientist in you. Experiments are the stock in the trade of economics like Katyut, and we don't want to dismiss them as empirical. Even in the crisis-driven world many businesses inhabit. Even so, experiments are not the be-all and end-all of good decision-making. As you've seen, even academic economists routinely draw informed conclusions from field tests and carefully analysis of historical data. And inside corporations, market researchers have long used those methods to learn about their customers.